Going back to you, Steve, you covered quite a lot there in your overview. So if I'm a large enterprise and I communicate with my customers globally through voice as well as messaging, um, tell me what's important for me to understand about these changes that you anticipate.
I think the key message is probably that companies that you as a large enterprise or your current suppliers deal with may not be there in sort of 3, 4, 5 years. Because all of the companies in this space, including the API companies for voice and messaging, all rely on other carriers to terminate calls and messages. And so, to my mind, the successful companies and the ones that hence enterprises should be looking for are the ones that have a large and solid retail base, because that's where the traffic comes from. And so if you've got that large solid retail base, it makes a big difference, I think, to your ability to be successful, and also to be highly efficient in terms of operational and financial processes, ideally moving towards full automation of those activities, so that they can continue to be successful as the revenue per call or whatever diminishes, because that will allow them to build market share, I believe, going forward. So I think you should be looking for that type of company to partner with going forward into the future.
Um, Reaction to that, David?
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. I think as well as obviously building a solid customer base, it's also about having the kind of international network of connectivity as well. What we've seen in the messaging space more so than in the voice space is that mobile operators typically don't want to deal with too many companies in the middle. They just want to have a small number that kind of collect all of the messages, voice calls towards their subscribers for them. And once they have a certain number, they kind of close the door. And I think it's important that a company that's looking for their provider of communication services is looking at someone that has that network. I think the other thing that's also very critical, and this is for voice messaging and any other service that a larger or a small enterprise is looking for, is how easy is it to use that service. One of the things that Steve said in his introduction that drove the kind of change in the voice market is looking at why these carriers existed, and one of the reasons that Nexmo existed and why we started the company is because we felt that at the time we started Nexmo, it was very difficult for a company to adopt SMS as a channel, and we set out to build the business to really solve that in many areas. And I think that's still true today, that the ease of integrating and using a communication service, I think, should be very high on the list, because it should give a company an indication of how easy it will be to interact with that provider of communication services moving forward.